and with film cameras, and they were very sort of limited what they can do. But a lot of time and energy, and people put a lot of work into being able to make a Star Wars film.
The great thing about making real stuff is you get to use all of your senses and your physical perceptions, and to stand there with 3 other people and critique a model or talk about how cool something looks under real lighting is pretty satisfying. And all of this photography would end up in an optical printer in the end. And that's a large device that actually compresses layers of film together and creates new exposures of film so that you can combine layers of images into the final one that you see in the movie.
The visual effects department was literally sandwiching one piece of film next to another piece of film next to another piece of film, and that really introduces a huge amount of degradation.
In 1978, we had just finished Star Wars. We'd done some digital shots in there which were very, very crude. You know, the diagram of the Death Star and that kind of stuff. But I knew a lot of guys that were working in the digital field. So I started a computer division.
The exciting thing about it was it didn't feel like there were a lot of rules. It really did seem like kind of the Wild West. Okay, if you can take a piece of film, you can turn it into numbers, you can manipulate those numbers and then put it back onto the film. Boy, there's no limit to what you could do. The entire world is wide open.
The first real image that we did that was completely digital was in Young Sherlock Holmes.
We had a character made out of stained glass, but the glass actually looked like it was real, not like a graphic of any sort. And it took us 6 months to do 7 shots, which was pretty complicated, but amazing that we got it done.
George was always very progressive about digital, and it was just something about that the effects community just got comfortable with it really early on.
Our experience on the trilogy, what was really interesting was that you realized you were really creating these images in post. You couldn't shoot the image, you were making the image in a computer.
Now, we were still shooting on film. We weren't shooting with digital cameras yet, but all of the post processes were starting to fall into line.
How did you go into the computer?
So I would have my hand, and then they would take a picture of it, and then in a computer, they would do an animation of all like a silver and silver hand, and then they would show you on a movie screen. Middle to late 90s, I guess it's standard def. It sounds like it's visual effects kind of was the way to get in.
We had a problem at ILM doing our effects. We had to convert from film to digital in order to do it. You could save a huge amount of money just by not having to convert anymore. Film is cumbersome. So I just said, I'm going to take my money and my time, I'm going to fix it. And we went to Sony and we said, we would like to help you, work with you to build a digital camera.
He was bound and determined that Star Wars Episode 2 is going to be shot digitally, and we need to get that all worked out and get a pipeline figured out for doing full-on production with digital cameras.
One of the problems with early digital capture was resolution. Resolution is dependent on many factors, but in the most basic terms, it is the number of pixels a camera can record. The more pixels you have, the higher the resolution, and the more detail an image will have. A typical standard definition or SD camera usually had a resolution of about 720 by 480 pixels.
Really, the turning point was in the year 2000 when we came out with the F900 camera, which was our first high-definition camera. Before that, whatever you were looking at really looked like video.
High-definition cameras record a resolution of about 1,920 pixels across, just under 2K.
In 2002, we did Attack of the Clones. It was the first major feature. that was shot high definition.
What George did on the Star Wars movie was take an experimental HD camera and apply it to a feature film paradigm. That was unthinkable at the time. It meant that he went around the entire film community, but it more deeply meant that he went around film itself. It became a really, really polarizing time for a lot of people in Hollywood.
I got up and had a big meeting saying that I was the devil incarnate. I was going to destroy the industry. I was going to destroy all their jobs. That you know, this is inferior. That he says he shot Attack of the Clones digitally, but he didn't. We have word that he actually used film cameras, that he's not shooting digital. He's lying to everybody.
When the F900 came out, I thought the images on that are just truly appalling. And I don't think that was a cinematic camera at all.
In the early years, I didn't feel that digital capture or digital reproduction was the same. They would always say, see, you can't tell the difference? And I could tell the difference.
I remember George Lucas pulling together everybody about 10 years ago at a conference he gave at the ranch up in San Francisco. And when objections arose about the idea that digital will put an end to the art of cinematography, he pointed out it's just another tool. And this is true.
Digital technology and digital cameras looked like a threat to people's existence and way of thinking and way of working.
You know, they would say, why are you going backwards? You know, but there's a lot to be said about the necessity to kind of lean back to be able to spring forward.
When people saw George Lucas's test, they said, that's not going to work. It was that same sort of closed-minded, we're going to wait 10 years to adopt this. I wasn't going to wait that long. I said, I'm following Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan knows what he's talking about. He knows what time it is. He always does. I can tell that this is going to be the beginning of something big, and I want to be there for that.
But the image sucked.
The image wasn't bad, but the image wasn't as good as film. But it allowed me to do something you could not have done on film. And I picked up my Sin City book, and I went, I know how to do this now. My God, I shoot this digital. I can make it look just like this book.
The night is hot as hell. I'm staring at a goddess. She's telling me she wants me.
Sin City would not exist if I had shot that on film. I wouldn't have even thought to do it. I was able to do things that pushed the art forward. Technology pushes the art, and art pushes technology. Sin City came out, it hit people like a brick in the head because they had no idea what they were looking at. Instead of hiding from it under a rock and hoping it goes away, you ended up doing something that people then realized was possible.
New companies began to develop high-definition cameras, and other Hollywood films followed Lucas's lead. Michael Mann's Collateral used the Thompson Viper, an HD camera that outperformed film at shooting in dark environments.
Michael wanted to see into the night. And that, at that point, was really, you know, best done with these digital cameras tweaked up and pushed to really sort of push the boundaries of what the digital was capable of.
Collateral is interesting in that it was supposed to look exactly the way it looked. When you look outside at night, you don't see black night. You see aura around the city of green and magenta and purple lights, and it's just like haze in the sky, and you just see all these crazy colors. And the only way to really capture that at that time was digitally.
The Viper was the first camera that really told me that the digital age was ratcheting up in intensity. And I could see the foot race in cameras coming.
In 2005, Panavision, an established force in the film camera business, made a serious push into digital with a large sensor single-chip camera.
We started looking at this as a real format, and we decided that the best thing we can do is design what I like to call a film camera that takes tape. And that's when we started drawing out the Genesis. Genesis is a full-frame 35mm chip that allows depth of field to be very similar to film. And we could use all of our 35mm lenses, which totaled in the thousands. Dean Sumler, who's an Academy Award-winning cinematographer for Dances with Wolves, shot Apocalypto down in Mexico, where the temperature was 100 degrees and the humidity was 200, and never had a second of downtime. He felt that it was like a film camera.
It's 35 pounds. The camera is this big. And on the top of it, it looks like a film magazine.
The recorder attached to it the same way that a mag would attach to it, so on the top or on the back.
If I want to see what just got shot, does it play back off that? They said, no, you would never touch that. It's like your original negative. So let me see if I got this straight. You guys spent how many millions of dollars developing a camera with Sony, and I can't play the HD back to look at it because that's the negative?
In 2005, Jim Gennard, the founder and owner of the multi-billion-dollar sunglass and sports apparel company Oakley, set out to create a new cinematic and affordable digital camera.
Digital wasn't paying enough respect to film. It wasn't as good as film. And to me, everything in the world can and will be made better. The only question is when and by whom.
There was a technological movement towards the eventual replacement of film. What was happening from some of the major manufacturers is they were creating video-level tools, essentially HD tools, and sort of trying to push that into the world of cinema. And what we saw was that that wasn't anywhere close to good enough.
We wanted to set a high enough target so that it was meaningful. That's the nature of Red. We want to help send film to the retirement home and have it feel good about what took its place.
In 2007, the Red 1 was available to the public. This new generation of digital cameras could now shoot more resolution than HD, an increase in pixels from about 2K to 4K.
When I saw the Red, I really felt I should call film on the phone and say I've met someone, because I really thought this is the future. The resolution, the curve, the way it saw light, I just felt this is a new thing, and was insistent that we shoot Che on it.
Muchacho. Digital at the beginning was very bad. Everybody knew that. Then came the Red camera, which was a little bit better than the previous ones. At least it was cheaper. Okay, it's cheap, but it's not good enough. And I actually experienced the limitation of that.
Well, you know, it had problems. It crashed occasionally, to put it mildly. It's a computer. But then again, Red ignored everything about normal film camera bodies and built what they thought was right.
Even with the war stories of being out in the heat and having ice packs on it and all that stuff, none of that bothered me because the get was so significant. In this case, not having to lug film magazines up and down this ravine for days on end in 100-degree weather and being able to shoot onto a flash card and change magazines in 15 seconds, that alone was huge for us. It resulted in a better movie.
I was desperate to make something that had all the fresh air in it. And of course, when you go to India, and Mumbai especially, it's got life. It's just coming screaming at you all the time in every way.
Danny comes with an idea, rage, comes with an idea with speed, energy, youth, and that's all I really need in the script. And then running, and that's it. And then off we go to India.
It's just the most wonderful place to work for a different kind of film. And we wanted a camera that would somehow try and catch a bit of that.
It's about finding a camera that the task is there, it's clear, and my job is then to find, with all my anarchic and conventional experience, I've just got to find the tool.
Cameras like Silicon Imaging's SI2K have been able to go places and get shots that would have been very difficult with film or earlier versions of high-definition cameras.
At that point, there were no other cameras small enough, and Anthony wanted to be able to run in the streets and track the children as they were running and be at the same height level as the kids. So they took MacBook Pros and put them into a backpack to use for their capture and recording system.
With this SI2K, he was no longer connected to the cameraman's body. He could do different things with it during the scene. It literally just improvising during the scene.
In 2009, Slumdog Millionaire won the Academy Award for Best Cinematography. It was the first time the award was given to a movie shot almost entirely on digital cameras.
So you're at the Academy Awards. Do you feel like that film, did that film make digital acceptable in the mainstream now?
The success of Slumdog with the critics and with the audience symbolizes something of an epoch. It perhaps puts Hammer's estate a little bit further into the ground as far as acceptance of digital formats.
It was the first real acknowledgement on a large scale of digital, and I was very pleased for Anthony for that, because I think he felt it was some acknowledgement that he would never arrive at because he'd chosen to specialise so much in the digital world. You know, that'll be, I think, look back on as there you go, that was where it changed.
Avatar was going to be my next movie after Titanic. So I converted into thinking about 3D in '99. I knew immediately that the only way to shoot 3D, that the future of shooting 3D was digital. We were starting to experiment with putting two HD cameras side by side. I thought the results were pretty cool. Avatar came out, but I'm really proud of those images. It looked gorgeous. And it was followed up by Alice in Wonderland and How to Train Your Dragon. Boom, boom, boom. 3 films in the marketplace, one after another, and all of them were huge hits.
The actor is like a piece of sculpture or something, only it's moving and it comes out. And like it's a combination of theater and film and music and everything.
I hate 3D. I put on those glasses, I get sick to my stomach. It's dark looking through them. The whole 3D phenomenon, it's a marketing scheme, isn't it?
I can safely say as a viewer, I'm totally uninterested in it. I'm without any interest whatsoever.
Avatar is 2 completely different forms of filmmaking combined. We only use lenses for about 1/3 of the movie, which is all sets and, you know, just normal stuff, lighting, normal live action. We used virtual lenses for the other 2/3. We never shot in a real jungle. We had to create the jungle. It was all computer modeling. Every blade of grass, every bug buzzing around. Not 1 foot of film shot in a real jungle.
My big concern is that the image, ultimately, with CGI, I don't know if our younger generation is believing anything anymore on screen. It's not real.
You're presenting complete unreality and making them feel like it's real.
When was it ever real? There was a kind of a wall there and nothing over there. There was 30 people standing around. There was a guy with a boom mic. There's another guy up on a ladder with his ass crack hanging out. There's fake rain. Your street night exterior New York was a day interior Burbank. What was ever real? Once you set your mind on that path, it all becomes very simple. It's just going to be a matter of time because digital is going to continue to improve.
Camera companies like Red, Arri, Sony, and others are constantly developing new products and continue to make advances in dynamic range, resolution, and color.
Up until the mid-90s, for Arri, it was all photochemical. We saw the digital technology maturing to a point, though, where we began investing in digital technology. The sensor that we use now in the Alexa camera allowed us to offer a camera that we can proudly promote as a feature film camera.
This is the new Red, which is called an Epic. So this is, believe it or not, 60% more resolution than a Red 1.
When Jim Gennard showed me the Epic, you looked at it and you said, wait a minute, what does that do? How does that free you up as a storyteller?
This camera creates these beautiful, rich, very natural, or very stylistically wonderful colors. We've taken and digitally projected 4K images on a gigantic screen, and it is absolutely mind-blowing.
Is it the end of film? What do you think?
I think celluloid is still going to be a choice.
transition starts with people offering a new choice, but it finishes with taking the old choice away. And I don't think technically we're ready to do that yet.
We have 100 years of experience basically shooting on film, and film is still around. No matter what George Lucas said, you know, that film is dead, and he said that 20 years ago. And film is not dead, because people still like to shoot on film because it really has an incredibly beautiful look.
If you look at the quality, I think that still film is very, very good.
20 years from now, they won't be saying it looks like film. They'll be saying, look at what I can do with my digital.
I will be one of the last guys shooting film, and Chris Nolan will be one of the last directors shooting film, but I'm certain we'll be using digital technology within the next 10 years.
I hope 5 or 10 years down the road, film still exists. I mean, I still plan to shoot on film.
Is it the end of film? Yeah, I guess it is. And I think in 5 years, film will be the exception. I really do.
Of a film is so rare that it's almost like an art object, that we can go back and say, this is actually a print of a film, and it's the only one in the world.
I don't believe for one second that digital imaging or digital technology will ever take away the humanity of storytelling, because storytelling in and of itself is a wholly human concern.
Art is very primordial. Science is also very primordial. So I kind of see all these things that just sort of, they're very harmonious things that always have to push on one another.
We are at the top of the photochemical process. This is about as far as it's ever going to go. When you're using digital, you're at the very bottom again. So you should jump over and help build that, because the more people that use it, the better it gets.
Unless you are participating to this revolution, we will be lost in past. We can't call ourselves out and say, we don't care, hey, up to you guys. No. So we have to be in.
With change comes new opportunities for the development of aesthetics and loss, a sense of grief over the old forms and the old aesthetics.
Everyone will have access to both the means of production and watching anything that's ever existed instantly.
As digital continues to change, the nature of storytelling will also continue to change in ways that I don't even know I could understand. But all things do that, and this becomes a giant revolution.
People love great stories. They like to get into a world and have an experience. And how they get there, it doesn't really matter.
One shouldn't even think we stopped. Well, now we've reached digital, this is it. No. Think about where the entertainment impulse, where the need is going to go.
I'm always looking for whatever is new to help just invigorate storytelling, to just push the art form even further.
Do you feel technologically, with where you are, do you feel free?
I'm not sure I ever want to feel that we've arrived technologically. I always want to feel there's something we can do better.
Everything comes down to one thing. If you do something with your heart, if you do something that you're convinced of and feel about it, it doesn't matter what you're using.
Once the idea of doing this documentary, this kind of investigation of, evolution, revolution of photochemical and digital, and, what became known as the art and science and impact of digital cinema side by side. In speaking about what should we do, Charlie Hertzfeld said you should go to Camera Image in Poland. We looked into it, and we were actually having lunch at one point, myself, Chris, the director, Justin Slaza, the producer, Chris Cassidy, the cinematographer, and everyone was like, yes, let's go to Poland. let's go to camera image. Working with Marek and Kajik, we had the opportunity to come and meet with cinematographers and other people involved in movie making, storytelling. And it was really the foundation of what became the documentary. You know, I think without coming here, we would not have made the film that we made. And beyond just, it wouldn't have been there, but just the direction that we got, the cinematographers, what we learned here, and the support of the festival and everyone involved really gave the direction to the documentary. And then to be back here 2 years later for the 20th anniversary, and to have not only participated, you know, with Side by Side, to be a part of the festival, but to open for the festival is, I know for myself and everyone involved on the documentary, an honor. Starting the documentary, I definitely came from the film side. I have a strong nostalgia and experience. My life is, you know, so much of my career has been in film so far. I mean, so I probably was more from the film side, and the director, Chris, was probably the digital side. That's not to say that he didn't respect the film side or anything, but doing the documentary, I definitely came to learn a lot and appreciate, and come to the place, you know, where it really is tools and the storytelling. But I do lament and hope that, that people will still get to work with film.